ESPNLA.com. It's Andy Kamenetzky, co-host of the Land of Lakers blog at ESPNLA.com and ESPNLA On Air, which can be heard at various times on different Saturdays depending on the USC football schedule. We get bumped for USC football, and that's a good reason. I don't mind. I don't take offense. Joining me this week's Trojan Corner, a man from originally Texas, then Watts in the San Fernando Valley, an All-American at USC, led USC in rushing, scoring, and kick return yards 3 straight seasons, part of 2 Rose Bowl wins, 2 national championships, over 5,400 all-purpose yards, 52 touchdowns. That is staggering. These are also real numbers. Anthony Davis, my guest. How are you, sir?
Doing great.
I want to go back a little bit and talk about your career at USC. What first drew you to SC to begin with? What led you there?
Well, first of all, being recruited out of San Fernando High School in the San Fernando Valley, I was looking for a school academically and athletically, baseball and football.
Right.
So I played baseball here.
Well, we're going to get into that.
And the thing is, it boiled down to all those 3 issues. You know, I was recruited by schools in the Big East, the Big Ten, Southwest Conference at the time,
sure,
and the Pac-8 at the time. And so it boiled down to Arizona State, Nebraska, and USC.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it was SC because the success of John Mckay and Rod Dado.
What does it mean, that tailback U tradition, and to be a part of it? Was it daunting to enter that at all?
Well, it was great because I came in behind the 1962 national champ, the Heisman Trophy 1965 winner Mike Garrett, O.J. Simpson, the 1968 Heisman Trophy winner. So I was in line to follow those guys. And coming in behind that great tradition, John Mckay established ground power and power football, and that's what I was attracted to.
Right.
And that's what SC is known for anyway, traditionally, power football.
When you're a part of that, at the time, in the moment, are you aware of carrying out a legacy and I guess, for lack of a better way of putting, the responsibilities that come with that?
Well, yes. When you come here, you got to remember, we came off 2 years. It was 70-71. It was 6-4-1, and the pressure was mounted because John Mckay had won those national titles, the great running of Simpson, the great running of Garrett, and here I am with all the great tradition, the rivalry against Notre Dame, UCLA, and I was part of that legacy, that continuing legacy. So I wanted to make sure that I performed to my best, and that was the pressure because you heard it every day.
Right.
Comparisons, year in, year out, past and present.
My guest, Anthony Davis, a USC running back legend and All-American. I'm Andy Kamenetzky of the Land of Lakers blog and ESPNLA.com. The 1972 team that you were part of, 12-0, you blew out Ohio State 42-7 for the Rose Bowl. Some of the teammates, just a few: Lynn Swann, Pat Hayden, Charles Young, Richard Wood. These are great names. Some have described this as the best team ever, not best USC team ever, best team ever. Can you just talk about the strengths of that team and the character of it, and also your role, because it developed as the season went along?
Well, let me say this. I tell people this, and I don't know, even you hear things about what ESPN says about that team. I just want to tell you that's the greatest team ever, and let me tell you why. The skill position guys can play today and professional. That's how good they're ahead of its time. Now, the interior guys, they don't compare to the 300-pounders. We had guys about 280 at the most. Notre Dame at the time was like 285. They was the biggest team in college football. I'm just saying, and off of that team, what people don't know is 9 Super Bowl guys. No one's ever done that.
Right.
And we never trailed anyone in the 4th quarter. And when I came along as a 3rd-string tailback, I started off against University of Washington.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to make that clear. 3rd-string tailback at one point, Anthony Davis. Continue.
No, was never supposed to play. I knew I was going to be a good special teams guy, and I thought my career was going to be in baseball.
Right.
So I was really, I guess, hanging out with the guys, but it was a great team. And when the other guys went down, Rob McNeil, Alan Carter, my roommate, I'll never forget, it was Oregon, 1972, up in the rain against Dan Fouts.
Right.
0-0 going to the 2nd quarter. McNeil and Carter goes down. John Robinson's walking down the sideline, points to me, says, "You have to go." I said, "You got to be kidding me. I'm cold, rain." So I got in the game, the second play of the second game, the second call, I go 48 yards for a touchdown, come back 50 seconds later after fumble of Oregon, and go 55 the other way. So that was my start. And I ended
That's like a movie.
Yeah, it's like a script. I mean, it was 25 carries and 206 yards. And then I always thought that, that I was just going to spot play, but the next week we had to fly back to the Northwest, Washington State, and John Robinson says, Anthony, you're starting today, because they were still ailing. And then I rushed for 195 and 3 touchdowns.
There's a cliche always that you have to stay ready when you're a guy that doesn't start, doesn't know exactly when he's going to get into a game. Clearly you stayed ready, I think it's safe to say, judging by the results immediately stepping in. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, you have to have a mindset. You got to be mentally and physically always prepared. It's just that you got to prepare every week. You got to go to practice like you got to practice every day like you're going to be the guy. You got to stay that way, focused. And see, football then and now is a physical and a mental game.
Right.
You could be physically, but you don't have the mental part of the game together, you're out of it. I mean, you see it in professional, in Division I, you see all the guys at 300 pounds, see all the guys running 4.3s. But if the mental game is not there, focused along with the physicality, you can have a long day.
Can you talk about how you guys managed to keep all the egos in check? Because there's a lot of talent on that team, and it can go 2 different ways.
Well, John Mckay he was a no-nonsense guy. I called him a General Patton. He was no-nonsense. You got out of line, you knew it. It wasn't like it is today. You had a code of standards you go by.
Right.
When practice is practice, film time is film time. We had a certain things, even down how we wore our socks. Mckay didn't believe in high socks. Well, I sort of broke the code a little bit. I pulled them up a little bit and put a little more white in my shoes. But, I was stretching it. But he had a categorically everything in line. And we knew it. And when we were in high school, we knew we were going to a school like that. So in high school, kids were prepared before they even got to USC.
Right. Did you ever try to hide your ankles, though, walking past him with those illegal socks?
Well, back in those days, Mckay thought I was a character anyway.
Okay.
I mean, I always pushed the limit with him. But the bottom line, I knew that I had to perform on that field.
Okay.
If I didn't perform on that field around my teammates, I was done.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it was. That's the way it was at USC. Okay. You had to perform.
November 30th, 1974, number 6 USC against number 5 Notre Dame. USC is down 24-0 at the Coliseum just before the half ends. You score on a 7-yard pass from Pat Hayden. From there, 102-yard kickoff return, 2 different touchdowns, a 2-point conversion. You scored 26 of the eventual 54 points that USC scored in order to beat Notre Dame. 55 points, check that. Though 56 really at this point, 55, 56, who cares? It's pretty incredible. Can you just talk about that game and what's going through your mind as you're trying to make the comeback and the team's mentality?
You know how you said earlier it was like a script? I thought about the first game in 1972 to that game. It was like a Hollywood script. We beat them in 1972. We go back to South Bend in 73, which we should have won that game, but they were on top of it. They won the national title. 1974 is the grand finale.
Right.
We dominated college football along with Notre Dame in those years. So what I'm thinking about, we had a great game plan, the best you can have, because we had a great staff. And I said, this is going to be this is going to be a fight. But as it is, sometimes great teams get off a good start, and before we knew it, it was 24-0. So I remember about 3 minutes before half, Coach Mckay brings J.K., Pat, and myself to the side, and he gave a series of plays to Pat to run. And we drove down the field, and I remember down inside the 20, he gave Pat a certain thing, and I think it was called G. That's our term, G, 91 pass left. And he says, go through your progressions. You go to Sheldon Diggs, go to J.K., and then if those guys are not open, you dump it to A.D. So that's what happened. That made it 24-6. Him and Hayden missed the extra point.
Well, it still turned out pretty well in the end.
But the thing was historical and was legendary, and people always ask me, what did he say at halftime? Well, I cut my palm, and it was bleeding like a pig. Everybody thought I was going to stop it. And you see the old photos, you see my hand wrapped.
Right.
So we all come back together, and Coach Mckay says, gentlemen, in 1964, we were down 17-3 to Notre Dame. If we can come back and win 20-17, we can come back and beat them today. So right away, I look at J.K., I look at Pat, I said, your father's a great coach, but I think he's lost his mind today. because Notre Dame was #1 on defense and #2 on offensively in the country, and they were big and physical. I mean, they beat us up in the first half.
Right.
So all of a sudden, he's pacing back and forth. He says, someone in the room has to make something happen. So I thought he was going to talk about maybe dumping it here, maybe we got to rush. All of a sudden, out of the blue, he says, they're going to kick the ball to AD, and he's going to bring it all the way back. I looked at it and said, you lost your mind. First of all, they're not kicking to us.
Right.
And if they do, they're squibbing it. And all of a sudden, I went to the field, and they teed it up, kicked it out of bounds, 5-yard penalty. The guy had a strong leg. I told these guys in the huddle, Mosi Tuvutu, Ricky Bell, Dave Farmer, Dwight Ford, Bernard Tarbert, I said, I want you to block one guy. I'm going to bring it, get field position, and I said a few other things. Couldn't say it on here.
No.
Bring it all the way back. And so they kicked off. It was end over kin, deja vu. I'm thinking about 73, 72, 102 yards. And all I can tell you, without going through all the details, all I can tell you, everyone in that Coliseum was on their feet for 2 quarters. We scored 49 points in 17 football minutes. That's unheard of.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. So at some point, though, you are going from thinking Mckay's lost his mind to actually buying in before that kickoff return.
Well, put it this way. When I got down the sideline, I saw proceedings to the sideline, and I heard, and it was so intense in the Coliseum. It was so intense, and I've never felt this way collegiately or professionally. It was so intense. I felt the vibrations of the crowd hitting my body. It was like running through butter. That's how intense it was.
That is nuts.
And when we scored, and we turned into madmen.
Right. Well, it just spills over. I imagine just that momentum keeps going and going.
And then the kickoff with Dave Lewis, when he hit that one guy, the crowd went nuts because I think the guy's still laying there. The way he hit him. I can say a few other things we thought had happened to him, but you know, that's how it is. You know what I mean? When you get a shot, you wonder, okay, is this guy getting up? He crawled to the sideline. That's how hard he got hit.
My guest, I do not need to tell you, Anthony Davis, USC running back legend, All-American. That year, 1974, give it up. 1974, that historic comeback against Notre Dame, the Heisman voting had already been concluded before that game. You ended up coming in second to Archie Griffin, one of his 2 Heismans. The next year, they changed the voting format, so all the games had to be in the books before the voting could be done. Be honest, you don't have to be modest. Did you feel like you got a little screwed?
Well, fans will say that, and I know that the system was implemented, but as years have gone by, based on my numbers and based on what my team did, I outdistanced the guy in every category but one. I think I deserve the trophy.
Right.
And I think it was so overwhelming in how we did from an individual standpoint and a team standpoint that they came back and said, we got to change this. And what I advocate even today, they should wait till all the bowl games are done, depending on who is in the bowl games. Because a guy can go in a bowl game and they can determine the national title and have a phenomenal game, and they should wait till all the games are over.
Get as much information as possible.
But the bottom line, and then we go and play the same guy in the Rose Bowl. We end up beating the team that won the national title.
Right.
But people don't realize I got hurt in that game, but I still outrushed him in the game when I was hurt.
Speaking of Notre Dame and touchdowns and crushing the Irish, you had 11 touchdowns in 3 years against those guys. 6 of them came in one game, 1972. I'm a Trojan, by the way. I hadn't told you that. So
that's a good thing. On
general principle, I admire this about you. But what was it about Notre Dame that somehow you were able to have their numbers so consistently?
Hey, man, I don't even know. I think somebody up there somewhere just put me in that spot to be able to perform. And, I've heard many different comments about me over the years. It said, like, if you don't perform the way you did, SC doesn't win the national title.
Sure.
I think that's a great compliment. If you don't perform in those 2 games the way you did, SC doesn't win the national title.
Right.
I think that's the ultimate compliment.
Did you feel that at the time, though, that type of magnitude?
I didn't feel that at the time because we had great players here. I was just a part of the team, but also I was sort of like maybe driving the team in certain ways. But I always thought it was a team game, and I did something special in occasions and stuff. And maybe I stick out in some ways, but I always thought of me as a team player.
Okay. Did you enjoy rushing more or returning kicks more?
Well, since I was somewhat of a maniac on the field anyway, I didn't mind doing any of it. I mean, whatever it took to help the team. I'd have ran back punts, but Mckay didn't want me to do that because that was too over-toxic for me, bringing kicks back and running the ball, because sometimes I'd run the ball 25 times. I'd catch the ball a little bit. So I was all around. Look at all the traditional runners at SC. I was more of a well-rounded player, more like Marcus Allen, this type. We caught, blocked, and I did all of that.
But was there one that was actually more enjoyable to you, like that got your juices flowing more?
No, I mean, well, you know something, it was a kick return for me. I mean, even though I didn't do it that much, but it was a kick return for me.
Right.
Because of my sophomore year, scoring 2 against Notre Dame, 97 and 98, and it became part of the lure of USC. I mean, we had the greatest kick return team in college football at the time.
Right.
And matter of fact, the numbers we put up is still the NC2A records to this day. I mean, it was ungodly numbers. I mean, like, for careers, like 30.6 yards per carry, and for seasons, like 34.4. I mean, that's crazy numbers. That's almost half the field every time you touch the ball.
It's pretty nutty. There's no question about that. What made John Mckay such a great coach?
You know something, what I tell people, first of all, discipline. He was a disciplinarian, and it carried over in the field. Another one, when you saw us play, you were playing right through John.
Right.
He was a disciplinarian, and he had a totem pole of issues you had to go through, from his coaches to his players. And we all knew it. He had a Bible, and we lived by that Bible. We lived by that script. If you didn't live by that script, you weren't part of that script.
But it sounded, though, like he gave you, though, a little bit of freedom to be you. I mean, the socks or whatever, he accepted that you were a bit of a character.
Well, he always knew I was a character. I mean, but you got to remember, not only in the football thing, but the baseball thing.
Sure.
I mean, Coach Dado and John Mckay knew I was a character. I was exceptional. I mean, I always.
You were you.
But you know, in those days, and I look back on it and say, God, you know, they could have ran me out of school doing that kind of stuff. But today, I would be a model student based on a lot of these guys do.
Right.
You know, so I didn't go hanging out like some of these guys do. I didn't do some of these crazy things people are doing. You know, I mean, not being on TMZ, making crazy comments. But I was a model person, and the main thing I maintained to do was to be the best athlete I could be and the best student I can be.
Do you think you could have resisted, I guess, some of the lure of either TMZ or the traps that I guess younger athletes now fall into with the internet and that sort of thing, because it's prevalent, it's everywhere?
Well, first of all, I mean, back in them days, you had to watch what you said anyway.
Sure.
Because the press in those days versus today is totally different. Okay, it's totally biased. We're so oversaturated with TMZ, the internet, and everything else. A lot of times it's telling people here that you don't even know what to believe or not to believe.
Right.
So basically you got to go do your own investigating and stuff. But I think that I would have been disciplined enough because of Mckay.
Right.
Mckay had the rule. And I don't care if you got all of this media stuff versus ours. Mckay, it was this, honor your school, honor your teammates.
You talked about baseball, just for kicks, you know, kill a little time in the spring. You played for the USC baseball team, outfielder, 1972, 73, 74 College World Series championships. How serious, I guess, did you really think about baseball ending up your future career? At what point did you think, all right, it is going to be football as opposed to baseball?
You know, my first love was baseball. I mean, I was a switch-hitting outfielder. I was drafted by the Baltimore out of high school. And the thing we wanted the Baltimore Orioles to do was pay for my education. And then I never went to SC.
Right.
It wasn't for the education.
Right.
So I come to SC, was understood I was going to play baseball and football. And I'm telling you, to play at SC on both football and baseball level, great athletes. I mean, I'm playing against a guy on right field, another guy named Freddie Lynn.
Heard of him.
Who was a #1 draft choice, rookie of the year, most valuable player in 1975 with the Red Sox. I'm playing against guys like that. You know, the Roy Smalleys, the Darrell Ehrensteins, the Rich Dowers, the Ed Putnams. You know, so I mean, here I'm competing on another level. And for me to be able to compete and perform like that and be a contribution to those teams was great. I don't know how I was able to play football and baseball there. To be on 5 national title teams, that takes...
Which do you think in its own right had more competition your way, the football players that you faced or the baseball players that you faced?
It was both. I mean, it was a different challenge because the football was third string. The baseball, I was on the freshman team coached by Rod Dado's son, Justin Dado, and he had a group of freshmen that were unbelievable. I mean, we were so stocked. We could have contributed to that team the 72 team, and me and Ken Heisinger was a guy who became alternate members of the 72 national title team. But we all could have played on those teams. That's how much talent was on that team. I mean, we had speed, and to this day, I still think of all those great teams of Rod Dado, the teams from 72 to 74 had the best team speed.
It's a pretty golden age for USC in athletics.
There's Justin right there.
There he is.
So he would always work with me, especially because I was a switcher. He would work with me on the left side. He would tell me, it's positive with Tiger, you got to stay back a little bit. Don't, keep that weight on that back foot. He paid off. I hit a few home runs here,
There you go.
I always believed that if I just concentrated on baseball, my numbers would have been better. But his father always advocated me going on playing in the major leagues.
Okay.
The Minnesota Twins who drafted me. But in those days, it was an economic thing for me.
Right.
And
did he ever forgive you?
Yeah, and I regret it. I mean, to this day, you can't look back, but if I do it over, I'm playing baseball.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to professional football. I'm going to baseball.
Wow. It does make you think about what if, for sure.
I've played 20 years.
I wanted to ask you finally, Pat Hayden, you know him well from your
Yes.
playing days. He's now the athletic director for USC. Can you talk just a little bit about the guy in charge of getting USC through this period?
Well, here's my deal about Pat. I've known Pat since 1971. We played in the Shrine football game here. And I said when we went through the crisis with the sanctions, and when they announced him being the athletic director, I said he's the best field general to do it. Just watching how he ran the football field and how he ran the team and how he handled us on the football field, he's going to handle it, the athletic department, the way he did on the football field. He's very disciplined, and that's what you need. And him and J.K. along, I think that you can get that back. It's going to take a while. We took a hit. We got 30 scholarships we're going to lose. And the thing is that we can keep the Trojan faithful together, and if we can get on through these early stages this year, I think you're going to see a positive year. I'd like to see him run the table. That really
that would, you know what? That's as good as it would get, and it would be a statement in its own right. My guest, you all know, Anthony Davis, All-American, USC running back legend. Could have been a great baseball player. Oh. Set a very high standard of what football was like.
Well, see, another thing historic. See that jersey he has on right there? That jersey, that's a Nike jersey. That's a throwback jersey.
Right.
And I was the first guy to wear Nike on this campus and the first collegiate and professional to wear Nike. And that game he's talking about, the comeback game, was the first game that Nike was identified. That game became on the cover of Sports Illustrated with a hand-painted football shoe from Nike. And now you know Nike is a licensed company with USC and the biggest shoe apparel company in the world.
What did it feel like seeing yourself portrayed like that, on the cover of SI or anything like that?
Well, first of all, I didn't think I was going to get on the cover, and I guess the dramatics of the game, what happened. I mean, we're down 24-6. We won 55-24, and running for the national title, going to the Rose Bowl, and that's what happened. I mean, because that's how I got on the cover, because of how the turnaround of that game. That was the best game in the country. Matter of fact, to me, it was the best team game of all time. I mean, I'm being biased. I haven't seen anything like that since.
No, that's a tough one to top.
I know a lot of people try to hype their own teams, but the bottom line is let's talk facts. What we did in '74, that comeback, I've never seen anything since.
Give it up. Give it up. Really quick, can you talk a little bit about Mustache Pete and Sarah Light?
Well, Mustache Pete, if you all can see, I'm wearing a bow tie, Mustache Pete, and a puff. I represent Nike proudly, and this is why I'm dressed like this today.
Sure.
Because I was told to dress like this.
Let me tell you something. There are two men on stage. One can pull off this, and it's not me. It is absolutely not me.
You know, let me tell you something. If I had you, I can work it in. I can custom fit to you. I can work it out for you. I'll make you look good. Eat with white.
Nobody is that talented, Anthony. Nobody. You could put all of the greatest designers in the world in Nike's headquarters. They're not making me look like you in this. I can guarantee that.
Well, the next thing, the Sarah Light. Red shirt. Me and legendary R&B singer Smokey Robinson.
Yes.
With this company that puts along, we put out these skylights, these new GPS tracking lights, and we're starting off in the Boys Club, and I'm starting off the Boys Club in Pacoima, and that's going to be the model to show the rest of the Boys Club, the state, and the rest of the country.
It's a fantastic cause. Fantastic cause. This, by the way, has all been prelude It's just a big lead up to me tasting a sweet potato pie made by Anthony Davis's mother. This is authentic. And frankly, I've been staring at this thing the whole time. I've been trying to make eye contact with Anthony, but he's too close to the sweet potato pie.
I tell you what. My mother says when you eat this, you'll be slapping everybody around you.
I'm ready. I am so ready.
So all you need, you gotta have a knife. You can't just dig in there like that.
I don't.
See, first of all, you gotta eat the crust.
Somebody get me a knife. Somebody get me a knife.
See, the crust is just as good as the potatoes.
I'm gonna make it happen. I will make it happen.
It's tough. You gotta have.
Oh, I am determined. Trust me.
He's determined. He's real determined. Look at it. You eating that pie like you're going to the penitentiary. Look at that.
Dude, this is good enough to get you sent to the penitentiary. This would be worth going to the. This crust is like pizza crust.
That's it.
Oh my.
See, what people don't understand is the crust has to taste as well as the potatoes. Okay, this is Texas sweet potato pie. You got your own styles. You got Louisiana, you got Mississippi, you got Alabama, you got all this, but this is the best.
Your mother's name?
Velma Davis.
Velma Davis. Give it up for Velma Davis.
She calls herself the warden.
Give it up for the warden. I will go to that prison if that is part of the staple food there. This is absolutely amazing. Anthony Davis, USC rushing legend, All-American. Give it up for Anthony Davis. Thank you very much. Dropping by Trojan Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you.